answer a question about a 17-year-old high school student with an unwanted pregnancy and a boyfriend who's split, talking to her about the morality of abortion is a really challenging test case. But I would suggest that, for one, just because she's pregnant with an unwanted pregnancy, it hasn't necessarily ruined her life by any stretch. And yes, I think the answer to that question, is it wrong for her to have an abortion? I would say yes, it is wrong for her to have an abortion unless the fetus poses a mortal threat to her, is an imminent threat to her life. That's the only exception to that. The reason for that is that fetuses, as they are maturing in a mother's womb, are full persons from the point of conception forward. And here's the reason. There are a bunch of good reasons for that. For one, the scripture, I think, is pretty clear that from the earliest points of pregnancy, you have an image of God bearing person. I think the accounts in the Psalms, Psalm 139 and Psalm 51, suggest that there's a continuity of personal identity at every stage of a person's life, which includes in the womb, as a newborn, as an adolescent, as an adult, and as an elderly person. And that regardless of time and change, you are the same person as you go through all of those phases. Okay? Now, I think we have to say this correctly too, because embryos do not become fetuses, nor do fetuses develop into newborns. Actually, embryos mature into fetuses, which mature into newborns, which mature into toddlers and adolescents and adults. So I think we need to be careful about even the way we talk about that. The other reason that I think abortion is immoral in most cases is because there's no place to draw the line between conception and birth that makes any sense in determining where you have a person. So I would tell the 17-year-old with the unwanted pregnancy who wants to end the pregnancy, I would say, well, if you don't believe that you are carrying a person now, at what point does the fetus become a person? It's clearly not at birth. That's just a change of location. It's not at viability, because that's just an assessment of medical technology, and that's a moving target. It's not at implantation, because that's just a change of location. It's not at first sign of brain activity, because there's no similarity between that and the loss of brain activity at the end of life, because at the end of life, that's permanent and irreversible. Whereas at the beginning of life, that's just a temporary, natural condition, and that fetus has all of the capacities it needs to flourish from the very first celled embryo. So I think in most cases, unless the mother's life is in serious jeopardy, like with an ectopic pregnancy, where the embryo implants in the fallopian tubes instead of in the uterus, that's a fatal condition, and if we don't take care of that, not only is the mother going to die, but the baby's going to die also. And that's, I think, in most cases, the justification for treating the mother and praying hard, hoping for the best, but letting the chips fall where they will with the unborn child. So that, for example, a mother who has an aggressive form of uterine cancer can't wait 9 months to start treatment. We treat the mother and we hope for the best for the baby, but we know the reason we opt for the mother is because if the mother dies, the baby's going to die also. So I'd put it like this in terms of make this more logical. The reason that I would suggest the woman would be doing something immoral by ending this pregnancy is that all of us are the result of a maturing process that begins at conception. And there's no place along that continuum from conception to birth that makes a morally relevant difference. And if those two things are true, then what follows from that is you have a person from conception forward. Now, some people will say, well, it's not really about this continuum or where it is along the line, but it's once the child or the fetus has the ability to perform certain rudimentary functions like self-consciousness, self-awareness, awareness of the environment, capacity for relationships, something like that. But if you think for just a minute about that, anybody who's been under general anesthesia or people in a reversible coma would not be considered persons, because at least if the anesthesia is working like it's supposed to, you are without all of those functions during that time period. So there's some obvious, I think, counterexamples that suggest that the loss of those functions doesn't necessarily mean the loss of the essence of that person as a person.